the time of finding the answers. And you know who just joined us? We have the awesome Johan Oldenkamp, who I have been so looking forward to this presentation all day. Hi, Johan. How are you?
Hi, Dean. I'm fine. Thank you for that nice introduction.
Um, I'm going to jump out, as I always do, and I will be back at the end, as we're going to sit down after the Johan's final presentation for the day, and we'll have a big old discussion about what they're hiding from us. So, Johan, please, on you go. Have a good evening. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, hi there. My name is Johan Oldenkamp, and I'm an all-round researcher. That means that I research everything that is important, and I think there are many things important. At the universities, professors have specialized into one subject, and mostly even a very tiny part of that subject. I do the very opposite. I study everything, and I connect the pieces. And that complete picture, that is what is called holy science. Sorry, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to share my screen, and I'll start the presentation. Hopefully everything works well. Because the subject of this broadcast is the Sirius connection, and I'm going to explain how we on our planet are connected to the Sirius solar system, and many ancient stories talk about that, and I think everybody understands that Sirius is very important. But I'm going to explain it step by step. So let's start with it. And before I go into that, let me just say that I have a regular television show on CCN, Conscious Consumer Network.tv. Every Thursday evening, I broadcast at 8 p.m. Central European Time. That's actually the time in the Netherlands, because today I learned that also the concept of Central European Time is sometimes also 1 hour earlier. So that's a bit strange to me. Anyway. It's Thursday, and maybe check the time correct, because it's Amsterdam time, 8 p.m. that I start. And if you want to contact me, even after this broadcast is also possible. My email address you can see here, johan@pateo.nl. And I have currently 2 websites. Pateo.nl is my multi-language website with 10 languages. And holyscience.org is only in English. This is how the homepage of holyscience.org looks like. It's a rather new website, and I'm still working on putting a lot more content there. But for instance, the TV shows that I've done with CCN so far, Pateo Television, they're all there. If you go to the right-hand side, downwards, you see them listed in reverse chronological order, and you can watch them one by one. And yeah, what it says is holy science is actually the reunion of pure science and living spirituality. The things that the universities are telling us are absolutely not pure science. Actually, that's a belief system, which is called scientism. So it's not really helpful at all to understand the true nature of our reality. And most religions, or I can even say all religions, they have nothing to do with living spirituality. In fact, they're all dogmas, systems based on dogmas, and not really helping us at all to find the true spirituality. So if you want to learn more about holy science and my life work, then go to this website, holyscience.org. And I'm an author of in total 33 books now, but most of them are in Dutch, but these 7 are in English. And the 4 bottom ones here, 4 ones at the bottom, you can read them for free. So they are online, available for everybody. Not every information is completely up to date anymore, because I've not updated them. If you want to have the most updated information on Holy Science, then I strongly advise you to buy this book. It's an ebook, Holy Science on Understanding It All. You can buy it by chapters, and if you buy the first 2 chapters, you only pay €5 just to see if it's something of your liking. But if you buy the whole book of 505 pages, you pay €13. And I'm going to talk about what is in this book, in this broadcast a little bit. The Tiamat theory, you can buy it for only €5. It's also an ebook. And this one, Understanding God, it's a printed book. So you get a hard copy for the price of €17 plus shipping costs. And actually shipping costs are also about €10. So most of the time it takes about €27 for me to bring that book to your door. Okay, so that's the commercial here. I hope you, if you really want to learn more about Holy Science, then you have to study, because there's no other way. The videos I make, I think, are really good for a start, but if you want to go in depth, you really need the books. And this is my other website. I have this one for long now. And this website has information in 10 different languages. Of course, English is there. The homepage is in English, but you can also click on Spanish, French, German, Italian, and even Turkish. And of course, Dutch, my mother tongue. And there's a little bit of information in Russian, Chinese, and Arabic. But especially Spanish, French, German, and Italian, there's a lot of information there. So if you know people who are interested in this and they are not really good at English, then please tell them that there's also a lot of information available in these languages as well. Yeah, pateo.nl. Pateo means no longer hidden, and that's my main quest, to bring it out in the open. And NL to means natural logic. Yeah, it doesn't mean Netherlands, because I don't want to have anything to do with that fiction called the state. It's natural logic. That's what this website is all about. And here, if you click on Pateo TV, you find the episodes of the previous broadcast of this show as well. In the beginning, I did a series of seven episodes on various subjects, but they all form actually a unity. And if you've seen them all, then you understand what I mean by that, because they seem all very different, but there is a common element, and that's understanding our reality. And what I'm going to do in this broadcast, I'm going to build on what has been presented in the first episode, the third a little bit, and the seventh also a little bit, and the episodes that come after this one as well. So I strongly advise you, if you not see this live, then see the episodes in the right order, in chronological order, starting with 1. They're all available on YouTube. This is how their front covers look like on if you go search on the YouTube website. But they're also available in high definition. For that, you become a member of CCN, a CCN pledger, and then you can watch all episodes for free. So I think that's very interesting. You can also buy them for €5 each, but if you buy 2 or more, then it's much cheaper for you to become a pledger of CCN. And then I did an episode on the true human history, and a lot of information in this broadcast is also presented there, but I'm going to add a lot of information as well. And also a lot of information about the 10th episode, about the archons. So I'm gonna combine mostly 8, 10, and some information from the first series. And the 9th I did as a kind of extra broadcast, but it's very fundamental scientific information. So it's not for everybody really interesting. But especially 8 and 10, I think they're extremely important to watch. And here you see how they look like on YouTube. Yeah, they're both available, and also, of course, number 9. So this is then actually number 10. It builds on 8 and 10 as mostly. And number 8 on the true human history was also broadcast in various other languages as well. Here you see Spanish, French, German, Italian, and of course Dutch. But next in 2 weeks' time, on July the 9th, there will also be a broadcast of this episode in Arabic. So if you know people who speak Arabic, then I really would like you to invite them to watch CCN at that time. July the 9th, a live broadcast in Arabic on the true human history. So what is the subject of this broadcast? It's about the Sirius connection. Yeah, we're going to talk about this very important star, and actually it's not even one star, it's a double star. But before I jump to understanding the dynamics related to Sirius, let us first understand the dynamics in our own solar system. Yeah, this is of course much wider, but the impression is rather correct. There is a star in the middle that is shining very brightly, and around it orbits first Mercury, then Venus, then our own home planet, I call Terra, then Mars, then the asteroid belt we see here. Then there is Jupiter, Saturn, and outer planets as well. But this is not standing still. We tend to imagine the sun Helios in the middle as it's always at the same spot, but that's not correct because the sun Helios is moving as well. So it's all moving in a certain direction. So what we are doing, we make the circles around Helios, but while Helios is going, for instance, straight up here. So what we are doing, we are making a kind of screw movement in the tail of Helios. And the same does Mercury, and the same does Venus. And sometimes they're a little bit ahead of Helios, sometimes behind. So it's very, very dynamic. And for instance, the Saturn and Jupiter are a little bit behind, so we can see them whole year long. They're never behind the sun, which is remarkable. Yeah, for instance, Venus and Mercury, sometimes they are behind from our perspective, so we cannot see them. But the other planets, we can see them the whole year. So that means that they're not on a straight line. That means that Helios is a little bit ahead. And Helios, it does not make a straight movement, like it's in a line, not a linear movement. It's in fact a kind of screw movement, or you can call it also a spiral. Yeah, it's turning. It's turning forward, but in that turning, there's also a circular movement as well. And here you see the heliosphere. Actually, the heliosphere is a sphere, so it's completely round in 3 dimensions, and we're inside of that. And this sphere is protecting us energetically, and it has also a kind of tail because it's going with a very high speed around the center of the galaxy we live in, the Milky Way. So, but we don't see anything of it because we're in the middle. Yeah, like in an airplane, you don't see the I would say chemtrails, but you don't see the contrails because you're in it. So the same is here. We're in this sphere, and we don't feel any dynamics going around us because we're inside that round atmosphere. And when we go round, so this round, we can see the stars which are in the same direction. So you can imagine a kind of cylinder around it, and the stars that are there, those are the stars of the zodiac. And we see those stars, yeah, every moment of the year. So they're always there, but there's also a second dynamics, and that means where the sun Helios is at the moment of spring. And that is also changing because Helios is making this spiral movement. That's going round like this. So we have the daily time, which our own planet rotates around her axis, and that's a period of 24 hours, a natural day. And then a part of the surface is lit and the other part is dark. So that's the first dimension, daily time. The second dimension is the orbit of Terra around Helios, which takes a full year. So that's the yearly time, the second dimension. And the third dimension of time is caused by the movement of Helios around this circle. So Helios is going around, and then we see at the moment of spring, we see different stars behind the sun Helios. That's the main issue here. And that's why we have called them the periods of the zodiac. Yeah, Plato referred to this third dimension of time as the great year. And we just left the period of Pisces, the Aeon of Pisces. It was the year 2012. And then we entered the period of the Aeon of Aquarius. So that's what we're in now for the coming more than 2,000 years. And a complete circle lasts nearly 26,000 years, which is very, very long. But it's not that long if we look back in human history, because we've been around many times. But yeah, we have not any official recording of that, which is rather remarkable. So we're somewhere here in the outside of our star system, our galaxy. Yeah, the distance you can calculate it in light years is about 26,000 light years, so that's remarkable. Yeah, this takes 26,000 years to go around, and the light also takes 26,000 years to travel from the center to reach us. So that's important to know. Actually, there's no real light in the center. It's radiation that's coming our way, but it takes the same time. At least that's what we assume, so I'll continue assuming that. And then we go around in the spiraling movement, in the ring movement, screw movement. We go around, and a full circle around the center of the galaxy is more than 200 million years, 225 to 250. So that takes really a long time. But the most important thing to understand about the dynamics of time is the relation between our central sun and another sun, another star. Those stars form actually a binary system. And we now know that 80% of all the stars in the galaxy, in our galaxy, are in a binary system. So it's very normal for our sun to have a twin, a kind of sister or a brother. Later on, I will explain it's not a brother or sister. It's actually the mother. So the sun, Helios, which is also the sun, S-O-N, is dancing with his mother. And his mother is the star Sirius. And the Sirius star you can easily detect when the constellation of Orion is in the sky. Yes, it's my favorite constellation. You don't see him whole year long, but most of the year it's there. And then you simply follow the line from Orion's belt. You take the upper two stars and you make a straight line, and then you follow it downwards or sometimes sidewards, and then you arrive at a really bright star. And that's Sirius. Sirius in the constellation of the big dog. Yeah, it's also called the dog star. So, and Sirius is the most bright star in the night sky. Of course, Helios is a brighter star, but we can only see Helios in the daytime. And in the nighttime, we see all the other stars, the other suns. And of those, Sirius is the most bright. But sometimes there's a light brighter than Sirius. And that is then, for instance, Venus or Saturn. They look, or Jupiter, they look very bright as well. And you can see here, oh, something went wrong here. Helios is connected to Sirius. It's a kind of energetic connection. And no matter where they are at these two circles, because Helios goes around like this and Sirius goes around like that, they are always connected with this dotted line in the middle. So you can say the sun is dancing with his mother. And in the Iron Age, Sun, Helios, and his mother Sirius are furthest apart. And that has consequences for our consciousness, because this is also kind of giving energy to the sun, Helios, and that energy is coming to us in the form of sunlight. And the more energy Helios receives from Sirius, the more higher our consciousness can reach. So it's very important to understand this dynamics. When we are far apart from each other, Helios and Sirius, we are in the Iron Age, and then the consciousness of humanity is rather low. And people have no idea what the meaning of life is. They have no idea about how the process of reincarnation works and how we can be fooled here. People don't know anything. They don't know the meaning of life. They don't know anything. So that's the Iron period, when people are rather ignorant. Then in the golden period is the opposite. Then the distance between Sirius and our sun Helios is closest of the whole period. And that golden age takes a really long time. 6,500 years. And in that period, consciousness of humanity rises to a peak. That's here, and then it goes down. But it's still really high. And everybody fully understands the nature of the universe and how everything works. People don't need to be educated because they already know. People just practice and put it into existence. Then the distance is just 4 light years, while here it's about 9. And when you look at the redshift, you see that's all very true. Oh, there's something wrong with my presentation, I'm sorry. But the big picture here is when Sirius is moving away, it's a redshift, and when she's coming towards us, it's a blue shift. And here we see that she is now here. So there is a blue shift going on. That means she's coming towards us. While in the old days, in ancient Egypt, actually called Kemet, she was called Subdet, and later it was named Sotis by the Greek, which means a red star. So then she was here. But then after that, she turned into a blue star. So now she should be called the blue star. Not sure if this related to the blue and the red Kachina. I don't know that story well. But I know that Sirius is coming closer and closer until here. And then she will start becoming, moving away again. So there are 4 phases. Iron Age is furthest apart. Then we come closer, which is bronze. Then halfway it turns into silver. And then the closest part is golden age until here. Then we go to the silver age again, bronze, and finally we come back to the iron age. That's the full circle of the 4 ages. They're also known in the Vedas, it's all the same. And that means that iron and bronze, the length of it, because they're 2 times a bronze period, is exactly the same as the silver and the golden period. So it divides the full circle into 2 halves. A dark half, you can say, iron and bronze, and a light half, which is silver and gold. And in that light half, the sine wave is up, you can say, and in the dark half, it's down. But the good news is we just passed this line of 2012, so we're getting out of the valley, so to say, and we're getting higher and higher. But it takes until 8,000 something before we reach the next golden age again. But we've now come into the I can call it the frequency where we can access the consciousness of ancient Sumer, for instance, and ancient Kemet, because that was here. So we are able to understand what they did, and they did some marvelous things. So maybe it's about time we start doing that as well. I'm talking about levitation, understanding how health really functions, and so on. Golden age is always from Scorpio until Leo. So Scorpio is always the marking of the golden age, the start, and Leo is always the marking of the last aeon of the golden age. Well, Aries or Ram and Pisces or Fish, they are down. That's the bottom. And when you look at my discovery called the Clock of Giza, then you can see that what has been built on the Gizeh Plateau actually is a clock or a calendar. It's showing the 3rd dimension of the time. And the year 2012 was the demarcation line here at the northeast corner of the Great Pyramid. Here you see the Great Pyramid, and exactly that corner, there the clock passes from Pisces to Aquarius. So that was a really important moment for us to understand. Here you see the Great Sphinx, he's lying also on the circle. So this is how the great year is divided into 12 aeons. Here you see the 4 of the Golden Age, from Scorpio all the way to Leo, and here you see the 2 of the Iron Age, exactly at the opposite, Pisces and Aries. The first episode of Pateo TV, I explain this in full detail. But the point is, Sirius is not a single star. It looks like a single star to the naked eye, but we discovered through a telescope that it's actually 2. There's a smaller star orbiting that brighter star. At least that's how it looks like. Here again you see Orion, constellation Orion. When you follow the belts from here, you reach here. This is Sirius, the brightest star in the night sky. And here you see the accompanying star there and there. And we already named this one Sirius, so we then named this one Sirius B, and this one then became automatically Sirius A. So we now call them A and B, which is a bit silly, but that's at least how we do it. But the people we call primitive, who live currently in the western part of Africa, Northwest Africa, called the Dogon, they knew everything about Sirius long before we were able to see that through the telescope, and much more details as well. They knew about the rings of Saturn and the moons of Jupiter. The 4 major moons they knew, which is really remarkable. None of this can be seen with the naked eye from the surface of our planet. So how could they have known all this? They claim that visitors out of space came here and they told them this. Well, what they are telling is true. And so I think what they told more about our history must be true as well. Because how could they invent it? Robert Temple met them in the year 1967 when there was a big festival going on, the Festival of the Sigui, and then he learned for the first time about Sirius and what they knew about it, and it was all very accurate. So since then, many books have been written about this mystery. To me, there's only one logical conclusion, and that conclusion is what they are telling is true. That is the truth, because it's completely impossible to invent all that. Currently, they live here in Mali, the northwest part of Mali. But I think originally they came from the land called Kemet, now it is named Egypt. And they had names. They had names for instance, that big star. What we used to call Sirius, and later became Sirius A, they named it Sigitolo. And they named the smaller one Potolo, which is actually a combination of a small seed, Po, and a star. So this is a small seed. And indeed it's very small because it's even smaller than our own planet, smaller than Terra. But it's extremely bright. So how could they have known this? They have names for both things we just rather recently discovered. They know this for many, many generations, probably thousands of years. And they tell that there are people, or creatures I can say better, that came from Xilantia, and they visit our home planet. And Xilantia is orbiting a third star in the middle. Astronomy has not yet discovered this one, but they named it Emaya. So that's really remarkable. And once in every 60 orbits of Xilantia around Emaya, there is a remarkable alignment of Sigitolo and Potolo. So every 60 of these Xilantian years, there is that alignment. From our perspective, it's every 50 years. Every 50 years, we see that this smaller one is crossing in front of Sigitolo. So that's the dynamic seen from our surface. But from the surface of Xilantia, it's 60 orbital periods. And if we call this a year, it's 60 years for them. And that is still celebrated by the Dogon. They celebrate this every 60th year, this festival of the Sigui. And it lasts about 7 years. And the next one is due in 2027. So if you don't have holiday plans for that year, maybe it's nice to go to Mali and join them in celebrating the festival of the Sigui. And this symbol actually means 60. You can see every line represents 10, so you get 6 times 10 is 60. But they also see a kind of animal in here with a head and a tail and 4 legs. And that's what they have on their head, the symbol for 60. And the Dogon tell us that creatures came to this planet and they named them the Nomo. And they describe them as both male and female, having female breast and a male reproductive organ. So they are, one gender. And it's called androgynous, and they were also amphibious in the sense that they resembled a little bit like the dolphin. You can also call them the dolphin people. So why would they make this up? This is how they draw them. Why would they make this up? I think they didn't make it up. I think it's a kind of accurate description of what really visited us. And I think the Nomos were the ones that created us human beings. They are our creators, just like it is said in the first chapter of Genesis, but then the correct version. And God said, let gods, multiple with a lowercase g, let gods make man in their image after their likeness. That should be the correct sentence there, because we were created indirectly, not directly by God, not directly by nature, so to say, but indirectly through the intervention of the Nomos. They came here. And what they did is they created two types of human beings on the basis of what they encountered as the most advanced living beings on the northern hemisphere. They created the whites, and what they found on the southern hemisphere, the most advanced creatures there, they created the blacks. So there were two types of human beings from the start, the whites and the blacks. And that's the whole story. And university scientism is completely trying to put the evidence away by talking about Neanderthals and by Homo erectus, but it's completely ridiculous. The truth is there were only Simia erecta, so upright walking ape beings. Oh, that's what we see here. And they were transformed into what we now know as human beings. And the equator was a little bit different then. I'll come back to that later. But these two species were separated for a long time. For about 140,000 years, they lived separately. They didn't know of the existence of each other until 55,000 BCE, before our current era. Then the mixing of the whites and the blacks started. And that happened right here in what we now call Egypt. That's where the two colors, so to say, started to mix. And that's why there is a variety of all kinds of skin colors and eye colors and hair colors, all kinds of differences, which cannot be explained if it all started from one color. That's completely impossible. So this is the variety due to the start of two different. Black and white were mixed. And that's what we see still today. And the whites, yeah, they became smart. Of course, the blacks were smart as well, but yeah, I don't know any evidence for that. But for the whites, we know that about 130,000 BCE, they already made boats. So they were sailing, or at least they were on the Mediterranean here, which is remarkable. But the evidence is there. And they looked completely the same as most people still do in Europe. So yeah, because it's mostly Europe and the eastern part here, and this is exactly how they look. Yeah, especially here in Germany and the northern of Netherlands. And in those days, they could walk all the way to the southern part of England. The North Sea was not there because the sea level was 130 meters lower. And you can walk all the way then over the North Sea here. And also here, you can walk from Greece to Turkey. And the Black Sea was much smaller and so on. So then we go to what the blacks created, and that was the first advanced civilization in Lemuria. And we find these statues still in the island called Rapa Nui. Yeah, it's also called Eastern Island. And that was the period of Lemuria. During these years, from about 70,000 until about 60,000 before current era, those 10,000 years almost, that was the high tide of Lemuria. And those huge statues that we still find on Eastern Island, they were placed on Lemuria in those days. And then we see the mixture of those two types, the blacks and the whites, from here. And then we get another high tide because these are all happening during the Golden Ages. Yeah, when Sirius and Helios are closest together. And the second highlight, so to say, was in Atlantis. And that was a mixture of blacks and whites. And then the Great Sphinx was created. That's at least my conclusion. During the last part, during the Aeon of Leo. And I'll come back later where Atlantis was located and also where Lemuria was located. Then everything dropped and the high technology and understanding fell really low. And then we had to climb all the way up to a second period of Atlantis. And then the Great Pyramid was built and the others as well. And then we dropped again until here. And this is where we just were. Yeah, we just crossed this line, 2012. So when we are here, we forget everything. We have no idea. Yeah, kind of amnesia, global collective amnesia. But it will come back little by little, and more people start to remember in these days because we're running up the hill, so to say. This is what was built on what we now call the islands of Rapa Nui, also known as Easter Island, because this was part of Lemuria. Lemuria was located here. Sometimes it's drawn like this, but that's not completely correct. It was actually more here, but it doesn't really matter. It was at least to the west part of the continent of America, and it was also connected to it. Yeah, and these are gigantic statues. Yes, it's hard to imagine how they were ever raised in this position. And there's also a very big part under the surface, so they're gigantic. And this is when you look at the depth map of the Pacific Ocean, then you can easily see where Lemuria must have been. Yeah, it must have been somewhere here, because everything is actually stretching out. In the beginning, the American continent was much more close together, south and north, but now it's stretching out further and further. That's why it's so thin here in the middle. So that was where Lemuria was, and Atlantis was, of course, in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. That's why the ocean is named after Atlantis. And it's probably somewhere here, huge island. And you can see it's much higher here in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. So it's easy to imagine that there used to be a big island when the sea level was much lower than it is today. Yeah, here you see another map. So this is where about Atlantis was, and that's exactly across the Strait of Gibraltar. When you exit the Mediterranean and you go in a straight line, then you come here. And that's exactly what Plato told us that Atlantis was, so he was very correct. And not only about this, but other things as well. And when we go to the Azore, we find all kinds of things at the sea bottom, which is remarkable. We find square structures, and it looks like they have been wiped out on Google Earth. So people assume, some do, that there used to be a pyramid, or probably there is still a pyramid. But yeah, it's too deep to see, probably. Yeah, here you find the Azores straight in front of the Strait of Gibraltar, yeah, to the west of it. And here you find this part of the northern Atlantic continent. And also the triangle, the famous triangle of Bermuda, where strange things happen, it could very well be related to Atlantis. Probably we experimented with techniques which we didn't fully master then, and maybe we created some very strange things. That's for me a plausible explanation for all the strange phenomena we see happening in that triangle. Yeah, maybe something is there at the bottom, a kind of energy vortex that creates all kinds of physical manifestations, or does the opposite. It removes physical manifestations. Yeah, it's possible. I'm not saying it's the truth, but the truth is there are strange things happening, and the truth is also that there used to be a huge continent here called Atlantis. So combine those two facts, then you get this conclusion. Now we talk about the people, creatures that invaded our planet. But before they invaded our planet, they invaded the star system of Sirius. And the Nomo eventually discovered their true nature, and that's why they wanted to get rid of them. Yeah, later on in Sumer they were called Anunnaki, and yeah, you can also see the A as alien and the I as intruder. So that's what they were, alien intruders, a kind of parasites, or you can call them galactic or intergalactic pirates. They come everywhere they can and they take what they want, and they don't respect nature. They don't respect the people who already live there. They just do what they think is right to them. They're extremely egoistic, and they have no respect for the the natural order, or you can call it the order of God in this reality. And yeah, what to do with them? What to do with them? The problem is they not only have a physical appearance because they can appear in a physical reality with a three-dimensional body, which looks a bit like a reptilian, but they also have the possibility to get out of that physical body and continue as a kind of, I can call it ghost or a spirit. So they can live outside the physical realm. So the Nomo could actually kill all the Anunnaki easily, but then they were still not sure that they got rid of them because they can jump, so to say, in every other life form as well, because they are sort of energetic parasites. Yeah, we have outer body experience. Some people have that very clearly. Even some can do that fully consciously. They just get out of their physical body and they go into their astral body, and from their astral body they see their own physical body. People who have near-death experience describe the very same thing. So we know this is all true. And the Anunnaki, of course, have the same thing. They also have an astral body, but what they can do, they master that whole process from going from the astral realm to the physical realm and back. So it's extremely tough for us to deal with them. And that's what the Nomos fully realized. They knew that it wasn't enough to take away all the physical bodies, because then they have to make sure that there were no other physical life forms which they could enter. Yeah, there are many movies about this phenomenon. People who fight against demons, and the demons can jump into a cat or whatever. So this problem had to be dealt with very thoroughly. And that's why eventually the Nomo created a very drastic solution. And that solution is blowing up a complete planet. Because first they were living in the solar system of Sirius, but the Nomos chased them away. Actually, they tried to wipe them out there, but they failed. So they chased them away, and unfortunately for us, they invaded our solar system when those systems were close together during the Golden Age, and they were hiding in this planet called Tiamat. And Tiamat is a planet that was fully covered with water, so maybe they created underwater cities or whatever. Anyway, when the Nomos discovered that they were hiding there, they used this very drastic measure to end this problem for once and for good. That was at least their intention. And that's why they blew up this complete planet, hoping that all the astral bodies would come floating into space and would not have time to jump into another physical body, because in space there is nothing they can jump into. So they thought this would be the end of the Anunnaki. But unfortunately for us, some escaped as well. If you want to know more about this, because I'm going very rapidly through this, then I advise you to buy this ebook for only €5, and then you can read it step by step. Yes, 93 pages. It's available as a PDF file, so you can read it on your own screen, and as fast as you want, as slowly as you want. And just contact me if you're interested in it. You can pay through PayPal or bank transfer. What happened is that some Anunnaki saw this coming, and they fled to a moon of Saturn. The biggest moon of Saturn is called Titan, and that is the moon that has a very thick atmosphere. Yeah, this is a photo taken from that moon, and you can see the thick atmosphere around it. So somehow they were able to make this atmosphere breathable for them. I don't know how they did it, but that's what my assumption is, because yeah, it's difficult to be on the surface of Saturn because it's a gas planet, just like Jupiter. So how can you live on a gas planet? I think that's difficult, but I think they went to Titan, and this is this has a earthly surface, so you can walk on it, and it has a kind of atmosphere, but you have to transfer the atmosphere in something breathable for them. But that's what happened. Saturn now became their new home, and ever since they honor Saturn for being able for Saturn for giving them life, so to say, because if Saturn was not there, they probably would have died. And then I mean, of course, the moon of Saturn, Titan. And after the planet Tiamat was destroyed, because it was mostly water at the surface, or completely water, all that water became ice in ice meteorites in our heliosphere, and they started to bombard our home planet. Because yeah, they went in all directions, but what came in our direction, and it was a huge planet Tiamat, almost as big as Jupiter, so it's gigantic. So there's a lot of ice coming from the sky above, falling into our own planet, and that was the dramatic event of 9600 BCE. And that event of all the ice water coming into our atmosphere made the sea level globally rise with 130 meters, or 425 feet. And because of that huge rise of the sea water level, Atlantis became under the sea level. So the story tells us that Atlantis sank into the bottom, but that's of course not possible. But what is possible is that the sea water is rising, and therefore it became on top of what was known as Atlantis, and everything was ever since underwater. And that's exactly more or less the way Plato described it in his book Timaeus and also Critias. And he not only said exactly where Atlantis was, which was completely true, yeah, just beyond the Pillars of Hercules, he said, or the Strait of Gibraltar, but he also said it was 900 years before Solon, and we know when Solon lived, so that means it happened 9600 BCE, which is completely in line with the sea level rise. So I think it's very accurate. He's very accurate on this too. So that was when the water of Tiamat started to hit our planet and made the sea level rise 130 meters or 425 feet. And maybe the people around that time saw something happening. Maybe there was a war going on in the universe around us. Maybe all our stories that we see from Star Wars and so on, and Star Trek, maybe they are inspired by something that already happened in our history about 12,000 years ago. Because this is what we find in Abydos. It's an inscription of a helicopter and a kind of, I don't know what it is, kind of Thunderbird, as you see, and a hovercraft. So what we see here, and this looks like a submarine, how can they have made these kind of images? Because there's only one explanation, and that is that these kind of vehicles were already there to move through the air, through the water, and maybe through space as well. Maybe our history is a little bit different than what have been taught to us at school, and that's exactly why we have this broadcast of this day. So the moon Luna used to be a moon of Tiamat, and the same is true for Venus and other as well, for instance Pluto. And because Tiamat was destroyed, the moon Luna got loose, so to say, and it took a long time before she got a new stable orbit, and that stable orbit was around our home planet. And that happened in the year 3114 BCE. I'll come back to that later. And before the moon Luna arrived, because it's only very recently, about 5,000 years ago, the moon came. And before that, there was no moon. The nights were really much darker because there was no light reflecting from the surface of the moon, Luna, to our the surface on our planet. And in those days, so before the arrival of Luna, our planet was straight up, so to say. Yeah, the rotational axis were perpendicular to the ecliptic, that is the plane that our planet Terra makes around the Sun Helios. And on that ecliptic, we find all the other planets as well. Yeah, for instance, Mercury. But Venus was not in between Mercury and Terra at this moment, and neither was there a moon. And this was how it looked like. And then this was the original equator. And the dots you see here on this line, they are all ancient buildings, much older than 5,000 BCE, 5,000 before our current time. So they're much older than this date. They were built before Luna arrived. Yeah, this is the ancient equator, the original one, and this is how it looks like today. Yeah, and it's tilted, but you don't see the tilt here, but it's tilted as well. But if it's not tilted, then you see it's rotating like this. And let us look at these sites, these ancient sites. Yeah, it goes all the way from Machu Picchu, yeah, the famous buildings there, and the Nazca lines, all the way through here, North Africa, Giza, Petra, and Sinai, and Ur, and all the way here to Easter Islands. This used to be the equator, and the equator was extremely important because there the sun would rise always exactly in the east and always rise around noon, straight up, right on top of your head, and then always sets in the west. There were no seasons then. Every day was the very same. The only thing that changed was the stars behind the Sun Helios. And that's why we learn so much about the stars. Because nowadays most people have no clue. But in those days that was the only way to know the time. Here you see the same line. This is the original equator, the red line here. Yeah, see how it goes. And this used to be the top. Yeah, this is in Alaska, in Valdez. And here you see those ancient constructions or whatever. Yeah, here the Machu Picchu, the ancient city there. And these famous Nazca lines, you can only see them from the sky. So how could they have been made by so-called primitive people? It's not possible. In Algeria, Egypt, of course, Vietnam, Thailand, India, and it goes all the way to Burma and then to Vanuatu in Oceania. These are all on the same line, and this was the original equator. Here you see the line again. But nowadays, when we have the current equator somewhere here, the ancient equator, or the original, looks like a sine wave. Yeah? But you have to understand how the dynamics of a sphere works when you twist it a little bit, when it's tilted. Yeah? Before it was tilted, this used to be the straight line around the middle. And before it was tilted, here you see again the original equator, and the north was exactly pointing to, you can call it the heart of the Draco constellation. Yeah, here you see the constellation of the dragon, or Draco in Latin, and it's kind of curled around the original north position. So from here, Alaska, Valdez straight up was always pointing to the dragon. But this was rotating, so the dragon was turning always in the north. Here you see an impression of the constellation Draco. Yeah, with a little bit imagination, you can make an image of these stars, and then it looks like a kind of dragon with a long tail. And on that long tail of the dragon, there's the star Tuban. And after the tilts, after Luna arrived, that became the new North Pole star. Actually, we had a star. Before that, we didn't have a star. It was just empty in the middle of the dragon. That was the original north. But after the tilt, it started to point at Tuban. Here at the tail, here you see it, at the tail of the dragon, that became the new North Pole Star. And then the north was always shining, or pointing, sorry, towards this star, Tuban. And we now know there is a precession cycle going on. So now we have around here, Polaris seems to be the North Pole Star, or is actually the North Pole Star. And then it goes round, and in about 13,000 years from now, it will be Vega in the Lyra system, will be the next North Pole Star. And this full cycle here, this is called the precession of the equinoxes. This is the great year. Yeah, and it has everything to do with the dance of Sirius nowadays. Now we go to ancient Kemet. Kemet means the black land. It was named black land because the inundation of the Nile makes the land black, fertile. And there were many pillars in this ancient temple complex called Per Re or Per Ra. Per means house and Ra means the sun. So this was a temple honoring the sun Helios. And later on, the Greek conquerors named this town Heliopolis because Helios is, of course, the name of the sun. So it's the city of the sun. And in Coptic, that same word is only two letters. It is On. And On also means city of the sun. So this was the city, or actually the temple complex of the sun. And one of the pillars is still standing there, this one, and that was the pillar of Isis, the mother of the sun. Yeah, because the sun, we can also call the sun Horus, and his mother was Isis. And Isis is, of course, the star Sirius. So here we see the pillar or obelisk, which was honoring Isis, and is still standing in Cairo. And we now know that this obelisk is honoring Isis, and we also know that these three stars in the belt of Orion are honored by the three pyramids, the three greatest pyramids on the Gizeh Plateau. And we know that there is a direct line from the three stars in the middle to the star Sirius, or Siki Tolo, as the Dogon called her. So this straight line is also made on Earth, as above, so below. Not only this was made, and this was made, yeah, this is the obelisk, these are the three pyramids, but also this line was honored, because there's a straight line from the three pyramids here, south of Giza, south of Cairo, to the obelisk in the east of Giza, east of Cairo, and excuse me. Yeah, so this line from the belt of Orion is pointing to Sirius, and the same is true for the pyramids on the Gizeh Plateau. It's here. When you take the corners, the southeast corners, and you all the way up to here, then this line points directly to the obelisk at Heliopolis. The current direction to the north is this line, but because the Earth has been tilted, that's how it is now. But in the old days, the line straight up here, that was exactly pointing south. So now its south is pointing this, 23.5 degrees deviating from this to the west, but it used to be straight here. Yeah, and also this this map of Egypt or Kemet, I put them in the correct position of the old times. Then you can see the river Nile is floating nearly straight to the south. Yeah, now it's making a different turn, so it's going in the end to the south. From here to here, it's a straight line to the south. It's just twisted 23.5 degrees due to the arrival of Luna. Yeah, here you see another map of the three pyramids on the Gizeh Plateau. Yeah, we are pointing always to the north, but I'm now pointing it to the original south direction. That's what we see here. And when you see the original south direction, then you can also see that it's is completely corresponding to the position of Orion when it's standing straight up. Yeah, when the two bottom stars, so to say, when they are making a horizontal line, then this constellation is straight up. And that's exactly how it was made in ancient Egypt. Oh, isn't that remarkable? Yeah, here you see the constellation of Orion straight up, and this line is therefore used. So it's honoring Orion when it's standing straight up. That's a very important aspect of this. And here you see ancient depictions of the pyramid of, the obelisk of Isis. Yeah, it's now called obelisk of Heliopolis, but it's actually the obelisk of Isis, standing here straight up. And here you see at the horizon the three pyramids of Giza. And here you can see the very same. So in ancient depictions, the relation between the three pyramids and the obelisk is completely clear. It's the relation between Isis and Osiris. But nowadays, hardly anybody knows about this. Here we find the three pyramids and the others as well. Actually, there are 11 pyramids on the Gizeh Plateau. Here you see a top view. Now it's pointing north, like this map is also pointing north. That's how we are used to looking at maps. So this is north, the same direction. And you see this line is exactly parallel to this line. So when you walk, or whatever, you take a plane, helicopter, and you go from the Gizeh Plateau, and you go in this direction, after 22 kilometers or 13 miles, you arrive here at the obelisk of Heliopolis, actually the obelisk of Isis. So this line is exactly correct. The builders of the Great Pyramid knew all about the relations between the stars, and that's why they honored both Sirius here and Osiris here. And even the clock becomes more interesting now, because when you put the clock in the correct position, meaning you put the three pyramids exactly like this, because this is the line how it's going to Isis, then you see like this, and then you see that the clock is perfectly divided into the Bronze and the Iron Age at the left side, and the Silver and the Golden Age at the right hand side. So when I discovered the clock of Giza, I did not know anything about the relation with the obelisk of Isis and the correct positioning. So it's very remarkable that I came up with that conclusion, and it's fully backed up by this new finding, because that's of course how they made the four periods. They want us to help understand that there are four periods: a golden age where we are very conscious, and an iron age where we are very unconscious, and the bronze and the silver ages in between. All the marvelous things happen when we are in the golden age. Then we could do marvelous things, like for instance making, I think, the pyramid using levitation technique. But when we are in the iron age, we are completely drawn in the physical world. We think that only the physical world is the only world. But here we know the physical world is just an illusion. It's a holographic projection. The real world is beyond the material manifestations, beyond the holographic projections. That's what we understand here. Holy science is explaining that in full detail. So if you want to know the true nature of our reality, then I advise you to start studying holy science. So what happened? The Anunnaki, maybe they got bored on the moon Titan, and they decided to invade this planet. And that's what they did. Around 3800 BCE, they came for the first time to our home world, to this planet, to Terra. And they are extremely lazy, so to say. So they needed workers to do their work. They don't like to do work themselves. Of course, they need food and other things as well. So they decided to change this reality and make their life more easy. And it's understandable, because that's what we do too. We also change this reality in order to make it more easy for us. So I don't blame them for them. I only blame them for not respecting the order of God, or the order of the natural world. They completely go against that. And that's a violation which is very serious. At first they were friendly and they were helping. They helped, for instance, the creation of the first city-state in Mesopotamia or Persia. Sumer. It's called Ur. Yeah. Suddenly, out of nowhere, there was an advanced civilization in Sumer. Yeah, with arithmetic, astronomy, astrology, all kinds of advanced systems, and all kinds of knowledge suddenly out of nowhere. So, was there some smart guy or woman who invented all that, or did they got help? Well, I think it's very clear they got help, and all this was brought to them by the Anunnaki. And they have many depictions of the Anunnaki. Yeah, they have wings because they could fly. That's how we also depict angels. Angels are the stars, and the stars do fly. Just if it's dark outside where you are, just check outside and you can see that they're flying up in the sky. So they must have wings, our ancestors reasoned. And they have also bird heads because, yeah, birds can fly too. So that's what you see here. And here you see the manipulation of the pineal glands. So they know how to change our reality by influencing our pineal gland. Yeah, they use mind control techniques to do that. Yeah, all kinds of depictions of reptilian-like creatures. And these are not, yeah, this is not fantasy. I think these people or these creatures were actually walking around on the surface of the planet in those days. Yeah, about 6,000 years ago. Yeah, even more depictions. How can you make up something? We cannot invent something which is not there. And why would we do that? So these were worshipped. These were important statues for them, depictions. And what the Anunnaki did was they decided to create a kind of a special project. And they started by making the Persian Gulf empty. So they removed all the water, and there was very fertile ground for creating a kind of I can say park or garden, the Garden of Eden. And many things were growing there. So it was actually a paradise. And they selected human beings to work for them in their project. Maybe they genetically altered them. I don't know. Maybe they used mind control techniques. Don't know what they did, but they somehow started to see human beings as their slave species. Either they recreated them, they genetically manipulated them, or they just used a mind trick. Yeah, here you can see it's not that difficult to make this whole Persian Gulf dry because it's much less deep than the Arabian Sea. Yeah, there's another image. So this was Eden here. This was dry land then, next to the mountains of Iran. And there was Eden, the Garden of Eden, paradise. And Eden actually means open field. So yeah, when all the water is gone, yeah, it looks like an open field because of course it goes a little bit down, but it's mostly completely flat. Yeah, especially compared to the mountains at the east. So it's really open field. So the name is very clear. This is the Sumer name for it. And the story we find in the Bible, in Genesis, or in the Tanakh, in the book of Genesis, that story is about the project of the Anunnaki in this dried land of the Persian Gulf. And they named that creature Adamu. And that name was changed later on into Adam. And the first slave species was created in the year 3761 BCE. How do I know that for sure? Because that's when the Hebrew calendar starts. And they start with that calendar starts with the creation of the servant of Yahweh. But Yahweh is just a reference to the Anunnaki. And this is another description in the same book of Genesis, chapter 2, verse 4 until 14. There you see 4 rivers named, Pishon, Gihon, Hiddekel, and Prat. And where they came together, or departed, but actually they came together, there was Eden, the Garden of Eden. And these are the 4 rivers. Prat means the Euphrates, Hiddekel means the Tigris, and Gihon means the Karun River that flows through Iran. And this one is no longer a river. It goes through, it used to go through what we now call Kuwait, so it's named the Kuwait River. But Pishon is no longer there. So that means that here was the Garden of Eden, which is completely in line with what I just said. But somehow the slave people were not obedient enough, and they were kicked out of paradise, as was described in the same book of Genesis. And so they came to the city of Uruk, and there they started to mix with the non-slaves, so to say, the other humans. And then we see the arrival of Luna in the famous year 3114 BCE. And the arrival of Luna causes the tilt of our planet, that causes all the water to be drawn towards the moon Luna for a long time. Now we just only see the tides. It's going up and down, but it's a stable situation. But in those days, all the waters were pulled to one side, and they remained at one side for long. Yeah, actually for 6 months, so that's a long time. Half year, completely flooded. All the water's there, and the rest was dry, or much drier than now. And that huge flood that lasted so long, that was written down in the ancient story of Gilgamesh. Actually, it was first verbally handed on from generation to generation because it has end rhyme, so it's very easy to remember it. It's a kind of very long poem, and every father learned it to his own son or sons, and they learned it to the next generation, and so on. So that's why the story was kept correct, so to say, for long before it was finally written down in cuneiform. And that story of Gilgamesh tells us that there was a huge flood and that somebody built a lifeboat and that he was able to live. Yeah, and Gilgamesh actually lived much later than this. And in that original story, the hero was named Siusudra, and the Bible named that same guy Noah. But it's, of course, it doesn't really matter his name. The story is the very same. So what the Bible is just, for many cases, just a rewritten stories of ancient Sumerian stories. But most people don't know that. Yeah, they were originally written down on clay tablets and later on put on scrolls in a different language. So Luna arrived, and that caused the tilting of our home planet, and the tilting is still going on because Luna is still there. So they found a new equilibrium, a new balance. But before everything was set in balance, the water was completely off balance, so to say. And the relation is extremely strong between these two because the surface of the moon Luna is always pointing towards our home planet. So there is a strong, very strong, you can say, magnetic connection between them. And that's why there is so much influence on the water. Before Luna arrived, the year lasted 360 natural days. And that's why we have 360 degrees in a circle. It's very logical. And it's also a very beautiful number because it's dividable by 6 and by 10 and by 2 and by 3 and by 4 and so on and by 9. So that's really, really important to understand the arithmetic. But that used to be the length of the year, the full year, 360 days. But after Luna arrived, it was 5 and a little bit more longer. And that's why the Mayan people had to adapt their Hab calendar. They had to give it an extra month of 5 days. And that's why in ancient Kemet also the Comitian calendar had to be changed. And a 13th period of 5 days was also added. So here's a 19th period added of 5 days, and here a 13th period of 5 days. So it shows that before these strange periods were added, it used to be 360 days. And there are many more, there's many more evidence for this conclusion as well. Yeah, and after the moon Luna arrived and our planet got tilted, everybody had to reorientate. And that's why in Peru, in Chanquillo, 13 huge stones were lifted and put into a kind of straight line. And during the year, the sun was set behind each of them after a certain period of time. And yeah, the two extremes, we now call them the winter solstices and the summer solstice. So they already understood how to find the structure in the universe again, or in the stars. Yeah, you can also say the gods took a different position, and they had to understand the dynamics of the gods, and that's why this was created. And the very same was done here in Bolivia, in Tiwanaku, not with 13, but this time with 11, yeah, kind of markers on a wall. And behind those markers, there the sun would set with a number of days in between. And it's a very, very simple system. And the numbers, the key numbers here are 20, 20 and 11. Yeah, because there are 20 periods in between. And 18 is also an important number. And that's the same numbers we find later on in the Mayan calendar, in the Hab calendar. 18 periods of 20 days. And here you see it's the opposite. You are 20 periods of average 18 days. Only the two extremes have a little bit longer, 2 or 3 days longer. And that's also why Stonehenge was built. Very same reason. Yeah, it was all done, these constructions in South America and here in England, all made in the year 3100 BCE. And the same is true for other calendar systems as well. Also the so-called Johan stone calendar in the southern part of Africa. It's all the same reason, because the sun was suddenly setting and rising at different places. Before, it was always at the same spot. Now, in a year time, it would change. And that's why we created, the people in those days created the solar observatory. And not only the sun was observed, but also the moon, because that was also new, and the stars. So it was understanding the new dynamics of the sky, understanding the world above. And the same is true for the shafts in the Great Pyramid, because when you would look from the Gizeh Plateau to the south around midnight, you would see that the star Tuban was, sorry, this is in the north, excuse me. When you would look to the north, then you see Tuban exactly in the north, and on top of that, the star Kochyan. Yeah, this is the smaller bear, and the Ursa Minor, and there at the front, there is Kochab, and Kochab was exactly on top of Tuban. So there was a straight alignment in the north. And in the south, there was also a straight alignment, but then between Sirius and Osiris. You can say the husband Osiris is lying on top of his wife Sirius. Yeah, maybe you can imagine something what I'm explaining here. But this is actually a straight line. And that was made into the pyramid. So the pyramids was built long time before that, about 8,000 years before the shafts were made. And they used a special technique. Yeah, I don't have time to explain that here, but that other people have explained it as well. There is a special technique when you understand the true essence of nature, or I mean of matter, then you can make a shaft very easily and very straight. And that was done here. And this one too. And later on, some were filled a little bit. But in the beginning, they were completely open. And when you would look through that shaft, you would see at midnight exactly Sirius here and exactly Al-Nitak in the belt of Orion here. And here you will see, when you look from the Queen's chamber up, you see Kochab, and here from the King's chamber you will see Tuban. Yeah, there are inscriptions on top of the ending of the shaft, and when you match the inscriptions, the carvings with the star map, you will see a one-on-one relation. So they carved the stars they would see outside, also at the top of their heads, which you think is very logical to do when you're lying there and admiring the stars. Then at least you can make the map of what you see. So this is all evidence. But the main key here to understand this is that the shafts were made much later. When the pyramid was first constructed, the shafts were not there. only the gallery and the king's chamber and the queen's chamber and the chamber here down, because these three correspond to the top three endocrine glands, but I don't have time to explain that as well. So after the flooding was down, the kingship came down. That's this description in the Sumer clay tablets in cuneiform. So they came down to Kish. That's what it said. Yeah, here you see Uruk, and finally to Kish. So the Anunnaki came down when everything was stable again, and yeah, they became the new rulers again. Yeah, before that they were rulers, and after that again. And they started to worship not only Saturn, but also Luna. And the priests were doing their work, so to say. So the priests they created a kind of temple, a huge temple for the moon. It's called the Ziggurat of Ur. In the city of Ur, a huge temple for the moon was created, with a huge step in front, and all kinds of ceremonies were made for the new goddess in the sky. And here you see the parade. The priest worshipping Nana, or Sin. She was also called Sin. And a sinner is actually somebody who worships the moon nowadays. But in those days, everybody was a sinner. Yeah, and Ur was very important. Was the most important city-state in ancient Mesopotamia. Yeah, I can call it the capital, but every city was independent, so it's not really a capital. And this is Uruk. And Uruk was famous for his priest king. So the priests were also pretending to be the rightful rulers of the territory. So they became the kings. And later on we see many more people claiming to play the role of king, and that they have a God-given right for that, which is all, of course, complete lie. And then, around the year 2500 BCE, a comet started to pass by every 52 years. And that comet had two tails, a bifurcated tail. And whenever that comet came by, it created a lot of upheaval. And I think volcanoes might erupt, and flooding, and maybe other things as well. So people were very scared of this monster in the sky, this demon. And maybe the priest also used this against them, that people should make sacrifices before, otherwise the monster might return. But every 50 years the monster still returned, no matter what sacrifices were made. And that's why the Hab calendar of the Mayan and the Tzolk'in calendar realign every 52 years. I think that's remarkable. In the episode number 6 of Pateo TV, I explain all this. But this has to do everything with Venus. And of course, the Mayan culture was completely into Venus, honoring Venus as a goddess. Here you see an ancient depiction of a celestial body with wings. Well, this is actually Venus. Venus coming by. And the story of Nibiru, which was completely twisted by Zachariah Sitchin, is not about an exoplanet that is still coming. No, Nibiru was Venus, when Venus still was a comet. That's the whole story. And in other cultures, she was named Baka or Tanka, and actually she was not she. It was seen as a he, as a male, because it's a kind of bull that is running towards us. And the word Tatanka is actually based on the same origin of Tanka. Tatanka means bison, or buffalo. And it's also mentioned in the Bible, by the way, wormwood. It's the same. Yeah, it made everything bitter. That was the effect, probably, when this bull came passed by us. It's all written down in the Enuma Elish. Actually, Enuma Elish are the first two words of this ancient depiction, ancient epic of creation by the Sumerian people. Yeah, there's much more to say about this, but it's all very well documented. The whole story about Nibiru, and the fiction of Sitchin is ridiculous, completely ridiculous. And it also came into Greek stories, but then it was named Poseidon. And that comes from the word Poseidon, and that means the bull of the heaven. So most people think this is Neptune. No, Poseidon was actually Venus when she was still a comet. And in those days, a little bit later, she had suddenly 3 tails. And that's why Poseidon has a fork with 3 points. 3 points, how you call it? Forked tail. Three aspects. And here you see the depiction. Yeah, this is the same bull coming towards us. This is Venus as a comet. And then the hero, Perseus, was able to kill that monster in the sky. And that monster was named Medusa. Medusa was a very dangerous woman that if you look at her, you will become stone. Petrified. But this hero was able to cut off her head and kill her. So he killed the comet Venus. Here you see the constellation of Perseus, and when you see the depiction, you see the head here of Medusa. Perseus cut her head off. That's how we interpreted, our ancestors interpreted these stars. You see it here. Yeah, and here, if you can see this clearly, this is the head of Medusa, and here you see Perseus with a long sword, which he used to cut it off. Here you see the Great Bear, the Big Dipper. Here you see the Small Bear. Here you see Draco. So that's where you can find Perseus in the night sky. And actually the word Perseus comes from Perto, means to destroy. So he destroyed the comet Venus. Maybe Venus was coming from that direction, and after a while she stopped being a comet. So maybe that's why he got the credit for it. But other stories as well, showing the same theme, namely a hero killing a bull or a kind of monster, looks like a bull. Yeah, Heracles did the same and Theseus did the same. But these are all stories about Venus. Venus when she was still a comet. And later on, she became a beautiful star. Yeah, not a real star, of course, a planet. But the bright light here is Venus. This is not a dangerous bull. This is something beautiful in the sky. So this is beauty instead of danger. Yeah, and this is Jupiter. This is, of course, the moon, Luna. And they all reflect the sunlight. They don't have light of their own, at least not visible. So then she became something beautiful. And Medusa was the comet in personification of Venus, but the star, or you can better say planet, personification is called Aphrodite. And here you see a beautiful, lovely woman. And here maybe even erotic. She was the Greek goddess of love. So suddenly Venus became love and not a very dangerous bull that is causing upheaval and all kinds of destruction. It's the opposite. It's beauty and love. And Athena is also, it has the same origin. It has relation to the Phoenicians. And it was a goddess of war and wisdom. That was all the phase when she was still a comet. Then there is war. And later she became wisdom. Yeah, this is the ziggurat built to honor the moon, Luna. And then suddenly you see the rise of the military kings around 25,000 BCE. They were called Lugals, and it means literally big men. And they were really big. Here you see Gilgamesh. This guy was extremely tall, about 18 feet tall. So it's extremely huge. And we find everywhere in that same area huge skeletons. So there were giants walking on the face of the earth. And also this depiction shows creatures that are at least twice as high, twice as tall. Yeah, and I'll come back later to this, what you see here, because that's very important too. Yeah, here you see Gilgamesh, 18 feet tall, holding a woman in his left hand, as if he's kind of a doll. Yeah, and he was supposed, the story tells he was the 5th king of Uruk, and he was 2/3 god and 1/3 human. So it was a mixture. How was that mixture possible? Well, the Anunnaki decided that they wanted to have intercourse with the human female. And that's exactly what was written down in the book of Genesis, chapter 6, verse 2. That the Bene Elohim, this word is mostly translated, but in the original version it says Bene Elohim, saw the daughters of men that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. So they raped every human being every human female that they were somehow liked. And that's why there were offspring, a hybrid offspring. Those were the giants that lived here. Half Anunnaki, half human. Because Bene Elohim means son of Elohim, Elohim. And they were also called in the Bible Nephilim. So Nephilim means sons of Elohim. And maybe the first woman they raped look a bit like this, painted by Leonardo da Vinci. Because I see the same face here as in the Statue of Freedom, so-called freedom, fake freedom, in the harbor of New York City. And also here, so I see the same faces. They started to worship Isis no longer as the star Sirius, but now suddenly as their first mother. Let's say the first woman that was raped by an Anunnaki and created a hybrid offspring. Many more skeletons were found. Officially, people try to debunk this and say it's all fake. Well, there are too many to be fake. So the official story is it's very true. There were giants, and the scriptures tell us too. So it's the truth. I will not go into explaining everything. Then just simply look at episode 8 of Pateo TV. There I go into many more details as well. But the main story is everything concerning Adam, is about the creation of the human slaves, the human slave species. And the stories of Nimrod, officially called Enmerkar, and also of Gilgamesh, they were all about the rise of the hybrids. The hybrids, they were able to control this reality, and they were the kings, or they made people believe that they were the kings. And the story of Noah is all about, or Siusutra is all about the flooding that occurred due to the arrival of Luna. And then we have the story of Abraham, and that's about the migration of power that was used to be in Ur in the Mesopotamia area, and it went all the way to Kemet. And the reason for that, I will come back to that too as well. These are not real historic stories, historic events. These stories have a hidden meaning, and the aim of this broadcast is to reveal that hidden meaning. The hidden meaning of the story of Abraham and his son Isaac and so on, Jacob, it's all about the migration of power from Ur here all the way to ancient Kemet. And I think they were no longer welcome here, or the people here understood that they were not really worshipping nature. So that's why they had to leave. That's what I think. And that's why they chose a new place to go. There was no God telling them. I think they were no longer welcome. So they had to migrate. And it took them 23 years. And halfway that period is the year 1776. The same year as also written down in the USA $1 bill on the back side. But then, of course, in CE, current era, not in BC, was the same number. The reason why they had to leave was there was a worshipping of Mitra, and Mitra means the Son of God, S-U-N, the light bringer, the real Messiah, the real Christ. That was worshipped, while the Saturnian priesthood, of course, worshipped Saturn, the Dark Lord, the Lord of Darkness, the Lord of the Rings. They worshipped Saturn because the Anunnaki came from Saturn, or at least the moon from Saturn. So that was their new god, and not the sun. The sun was actually the opposite. So they wanted to do nothing with that. They wanted to deviate the attention of the people from the sun to the darkness. And that's what's still going on in our society today. People have to wear sunglasses because the sun is evil. People have to put things on their body because the sun can create cancer. These are all lies. The sun is the portal to understand the essence of God. And if you want to learn more about that, then understand the religion, so to say, or the worshipping of Mitra. This is Mitra. And of course, the sun is connected to the lion, because that's where his home is. Yeah, the constellation of Leo, that is the home of the sun, Helios. And also everything about Zoroaster, that's the Greek name for Zarathustra. It has everything to do with the understanding of the essence of this world, the creation from light. Yeah, I can't explain everything in detail here, but it's all the same. And that's why the priests left Mesopotamia, because the people understood the truth. And the moment you understand the truth, you are no longer fooled by the darkness. The darkness has no longer grip on you, or is no longer appealing to you, because it has nothing to offer. It has maybe something to offer in this physical shadow world, in this illusionary world. But if you understand the true meaning, then you are not tempted in this physical reality, because you live much longer than this physical body. So you go for the long term, not for the short term. Only fools go for the short term. So they had to run to Egypt, and that's why they start their new hegemony, their new empire. And they arrived during the 13th dynasty. That's remarkable. They are also fond of the number 13. So that's why they arrived here. Is it a coincidence? I don't know, but it's the truth. And yeah, here in the 15th dynasty, there are Hyksos, meaning rulers of foreign countries. These were all Semites. Yeah, the Semites took over. Well, before that, they were all black. It was a completely black society in the Black Land. Isn't that remarkable? And then the Semites took over. Until the New Kingdom, because there was a king in the New Kingdom that stood up against them, because he started to see the light as well. And that's why he changed the whole situation in ancient Kemet. And they didn't like that at all. Because the one that stood up, because they claimed there was an exile, but the whole exile is a complete fantasy. Yeah, it's just 430 years between the arrival, the moment they took power in ancient Kemet, until the death of this king. Because that king is Akhenaten. So the 430 years mentioned here is just a hidden message that points directly to the death of Akhenaten. Because he was murdered. For 7 years, he was able to completely change the way things were done in ancient Kemet. Yeah, he changed the worshipping of the darkness, of the Dark Lord, of Saturn, into worshipping of the sun again. And because he understood the truth, maybe the religion of Zoroaster reached him, of Mitra. Somehow he got enlightened, and that's why he changed everything. But the Saturnian priests were able to kill him after 7 years. And also the number 7 is very important. And he and Nefertiti had a son. At least that's what I understood. But some also say it was a different mother, doesn't really matter. But his son was named Tutankhaten when he was born. But after he was murdered, after his father was murdered, his name was changed in Tutankhamun. And that's the only name most people know of this son. And he was killed too when he was 18. Because they wanted to get rid of the bloodline of Akhenaten, who was officially named at the start Amenhotep, meaning servant of the darkness, servant of Amun. Everybody who says Amen before dinner or after a prayer is honoring Amun. That has nothing to do with the Lord of the Light. Yeah, if you think that it has to do something with God, then you are completely fooled. Don't use the word Amun or Amen or Amun any longer. It's all referring to the Dark Lord. Yeah? You can better use Helios or Jesus or even Santa Claus is better than Amun. And when he was completely annihilated, his successor Horemheb portrayed himself next to Amun, showing Amun is now in control. And no longer Horus or Ra or the light or the true spirit. And then the Israelites had their so-called journey, but it's all fake. It's all a fake story. These are the Israelites, the elite. They want to rule this world. They think they honor Saturn, or actually the Anunnaki, and that's why they will be rewarded. They think they are the chosen people, but they are the chosen people by Yahweh, and Yahweh is an Anunnaki. Has nothing to do with the true God, the one true God. And the stories of Solomon and David, completely fictions. The Temple of Solomon was never built. And the whole story here is all wishful thinking or fiction. But based on these fictional stories, they were able to claim the land of Palestine much later, which is outrageous, which is horrible, which is a huge mistake. Yeah, so Yahweh means at least one or maybe more evil extraterrestrial intruders. Anunnaki came here from probably Titan, but at least from the region of Saturn. Yeah, and that intruder was not an enlightened being at all. Because how can you be enlightened and be wrathful, vengeful, jealous, and angry? These are not really qualities of somebody who is enlightened. I don't think so. So that must have been something other than something enlightened, meaning the Dark Lord. Or you can also call it Satan. Satan and Saturn, maybe it's the same. So Yahweh means El-It. The El-It worship El, or Yahweh, or Elohim, those who came from El. And El is Saturn. Anu is also Saturn. And Ilu is also Saturn. Yeah, this is the Akkadian name for Saturn. Illuminati just means the same. Those who came from Ilu, or Anu, or El, or Saturn. Yeah, it also means the enlightened ones, but it's also indirectly a reference to Saturn. If you understand the ancient word from Asian Akkadian word for Saturn. And when the 32nd dynasty started, when Alexander the Great conquered ancient Kemet. And since then it was named Aegyptos. And later the Romans even named it Aegyptus, with a U at the end. And here you see a depiction of Alexander the Great, Alexander the Third of Macedon. This is a statue of him in the museum in Istanbul. And he conquered this whole region when he was very young, because he died when he was, I think, 34 or something. And the last emperor or king, or they were also called pharaoh in those days, but not in the ancient times, that was Cleopatra the Seventh Philopater. And yeah, when you look at her face, I see again the same resemblance with the Statue of Liberty and the Mona Lisa. So maybe it's the same bloodline. It's very well possible. And the Romans conquered the whole area around the Mediterranean. Yeah, this was their new kingdom, or their new empire. But not in the north of the Netherlands and Germany. So I think that's great. They were not able to conquer that. But these people were never conquered by the Roman Empire, at least not in those days. Yeah, because the Roman Empire is still there, but then I talk about the power of the Vatican and all the tricks they apply on us. Because when the Roman Empire started, the power base of the Saturnian priesthood also went to Rome, yeah, to the new capital. And that migration started around this period when people were entertained. Yeah, by circuses, the circus of Caligula and Nero. This so-called square, it's not a square shape, but here they were entertaining the people, like the television is entertaining us now. And of course, the sports events still. Yeah, the film Ben-Hur is situated in a certain. Some scenes are situated around this place, and you can see the obelisk here. Yeah, the obelisk is showing, even here, obelisk is showing the power. The power group has moved here. There you see the obelisk again. And then we see the personification of the so-called Christ, but they were not Christ, they were the believers in Mithra. From the year 64, they were fed to the lions. They were thrown to the lions. Because in those days there was no Christianity. That came much later, around the year 200. So the people who were thrown to the lions in this year, from this year on, they were followers of Mithra. They knew about Mithras. And this is true for Mithras. He was born on December 25 and so on. Later on, the story of Mithras just was copied and was renamed into Jesus. But Jesus, neither Mithras really lived. They are just personifications of the sun, Helios. And I explained that in the previous episode of Pateo TV on the basis of the scrolls that were found here in Nag Hammadi. Here you see Nag Hammadi, here's Luxor, and here's the temple of Amun, the Dark Lord. And on top of that, a little bit north of that, there was this vase, and inside there were 13 books, and they had 52 different stories or treatises. And this was all Hermetism, or you can also call it later on alchemy. This was about gnosis, about understanding how the world really functions, and also a part of the Republic written by Plato. So it's all coming to the same source, the understanding of our nature, the nature of our reality. These people were not stupid. They understood how the world really works. Yeah, nowadays I call it holy science, and these people would really love, I think, the broadcast of Pateo TV in this time. But in those days, it was extremely dangerous to have these kinds of books with you. Yeah, they were kind of forbidden books, even though they were written in Coptic, because they were translations from original Greek stories into Coptic. But it was still very dangerous. So that's why they were hidden carefully. People didn't want to be caught with them. And it took a lot of effort to keep them as good as possible. Leather cover and inside leather and the papyrus here. So they really took care of their scriptures. So these scriptures must have been extremely important to them. And I can understand why, based on the content. Yeah, this is here part of the Coptic. Yeah, for instance, the origin of the world. That's a very important story. Yeah, these are 4 of the, in total, 52 stories. And what about this? The hypostasis of the archons. Yeah, and the disclosure of the 8th and the 9th. Holy science shows how important 8th and 9th is. 8 is 2 to the power 3, and 9th is 3 to the power 2. It's all about the numbers 2 and 3. But I will not go into that here. Archons. Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about the archons. Hypostasis literally means understanding. Hypo means under, and stasis means standing. So the understanding of the archons. We need to understand the archons, otherwise we are lost. And gnosis is all about important knowledge. You can also call it spiritual knowledge or insight. Yeah, in episode 10 I explained it much deeper. Later on there were scrolls found in the Dead Sea area, the Dead Sea Scrolls, about nearly 1,000 of them. But they were all controlled. The publication was controlled by the Roman clergy. So we can be sure that nothing about the archons is in there. Neither is there in the Bible. But the good thing is, in these stories, the original ones, not altered, original translations from Greek, there we find a lot of information of the archons. Yeah, so the truth about Christianity is it was started not before the year 200, maybe even later. Around the year 325, it became organized after the Council of Nicaea. And there was a man who was opposing the interpretation of the Judaic scribes, the Pharisees, and he was having a big argument with them, but he didn't refer to the Gospels. So that can only mean one thing: the Gospels were not written in the year 165, because that was the year he was hanged. The Gospels were written later, because these were all stories of Mithras, and later they used a trick, because they say we make new stories. We use not Mithras, but we use Jesus as a new character, and then nobody can arrest us because it's not about Mithras. Because it was extremely dangerous to have books with you or stories that related to the science of the light or the understanding of the light. So they use different stories, but of course it's the very same. But later on, these stories were were altered also by the Roman clergy. So the original stories that we find now in the New Testament, they were Gnostic writings, or alchemistic writings, or you can call them holy science writings. But what we find now, they are altered, they are manipulated, and they are changed. But even then, you can still find a lot of truth in them. So if you talk about Christianity, the Christianity started long time before, because Mithras was also called the Christos, or you cannot call Christianity before 200. So claiming that there were Christians thrown to the lions is completely ridiculous, but the whole idea of Christians came much later. The people who were fed to the lions were worshipping Mithras. Here you see a depiction from the 1st century, and it also was worshipped in ancient India, because India came originally from Persia. So we find there also the same goddess, same god, Mithra. Here you find Justinus. Justinus was the guy who was hanged. He's called in English Justin Martyr. But he wrote 6 books explaining why the Hebrew interpretation is wrong. And he was murdered for that. But he didn't mention even one gospel. So the gospels were not written then. And he didn't even mention Jesus. Well, he lived in the same region 100 years later. And not a word about Jesus? That's strange. That proves that Jesus never lived. It's just a metaphor, personification. And this guy didn't live either. Simon Peter, or whatever his name was. It was a fictitious character. And the Roman Vatican criminal organization is calling him the first pope, which is completely ridiculous, because he never lived. And then Constantine the First later on named himself Constantine the Great, and he was also declared a saint by the Roman Catholic criminal organization, the terror organization, I can better say, because he was able to fool all the Mithra believers into becoming Christians, because the Christian organization was fully under control of the Saturnian priests. So why did they do that? Because they saw they couldn't beat them. There was no way they could wipe them out. They were not afraid of dying. So they were thinking on the long term instead of the short term. So that didn't mean anything to them. So that's very difficult to change the movement if death is not a solution in suppressing it. So Constantine was able to somehow incorporate the Mithras movement into Christianity, and since then all people who call themselves Christians are fooled, because Christianity has nothing to do with the original insights. Only if you have understanding, only if you have knowledge, eyes to see, ears to hear, then you can see the truth. Otherwise you're fooled. All people who call themselves Christians, they think they do the right things, but they are fooled. They are completely fooled, and they worship Saturn instead of the sun he used. And because he was able to fool them, and ever since, because it's going on for 1700 years now, he was rewarded by the Vatican. This guy said these are the 66 books of the Bible, and ever since we have that, but that happened only in the year 367. Remarkable. It was a guy who lived in Alexandria in the north of Egypt. And very next to the obelisk, there was the new headquarters of the Roman the priesthood, the Saturnian priesthood. Because during Constantine the First, the building started, but later it was completed, and here this is more than 1,000 years later. It was a really huge building. This was the first version, and the second version was built behind the obelisk. Here you see the second version. This is still there today. Now it's behind. It used to be here next to it. And this is the headquarters of the Saturnian priesthood in our day. This is how it looks in these days. This is where Saturn is worshipped. That's why we see the rings of Saturn. And the obelisk, of course, is prominently here. So it's all about the power from ancient Kemet. And the one who was doing research about the argons is John Lamblèche. Yeah, his book "Not in His Image" is correctly is I think really good because it's not in the image of Yahweh that we were created. Yahweh is the Saturnian intruder, the Anunnaki, but we are created in an image, and that's the image of the Nomo. So I think maybe, and that's not in his book. It's only about the Gnostic version of how everything was created and the roles of the archons. So that's important to understand. Yeah, and the archons, they are actually parasites because the Anunnaki can easily leave their physical body and then they become the archons, but they are the same. And the Anunnaki also created a kind of helping force for them. Yeah, these are the so-called grays. They were created by the Anunnaki. Maybe these are not actually, I don't know. Maybe they're kind of artificial life forms. That's possible. But anyway, the Anunnaki, they are the aggressive ones, the reptilians or the draconic creatures, how you like to call them. They are the mastermind behind all this. And they are creating our reality ever since. And that's why the Gnostic writings warn us about the archons, because they intrude also in our mind. Subliminal intrusion. Yeah, mind control. They deceive. They are the masters of deception. And they also learn to take a physical body. So now we cannot even see them, see the difference between an Anunnaki and a human being. They look the same to us. Only if you feel the energy, or if you look good in the eyes, then you can see it. But otherwise, they look human from the outside. And what did they do? They created a kind of belief system. And for every, there are many different tastes of these belief systems. Yeah, it started with Hinduism, then of course Judaism, Christianity, Buddhism, Islam. These are the 5 major religions in this reality. But a new religion was created too. That's called the New Age, because people left these religions and they had to be caught again in a new religion, which is New Age. New Age is a religion. It's a mind controlling system. And the newest one is up there. All the stories about UFOs and ETs and all the stories of the Galactic Federation of Light and so on. It's a new religion. And many people believe in that. They are all fooled. Because to the Archons or the Anunnaki, it doesn't mind what you believe in as long as you're not really interested in finding the truth about the reality. Yeah, it's just a distraction. Yeah, people think they are doing good because they become really fanatic in whatever they're doing. And that's exactly what they want. Become fanatic in doing the opposite of what you should do, that is find the truth. People believe in dogmas. And then they become really tricked. Yeah. And of course you find truth in here because you cannot sell 100% lies to people. You have to tell them a few truths. Also in New Age, there are some things that are true, but there are many things that are completely bollocks. And it's in every religion. And that's how they control people. Give them a few truths, and for the rest they control their minds. And it's not only the religions, everything is corrupted by them. More and more. What the universities call science is not a real science at all. It's a scientism, it's a belief system. And the so-called healthcare is not helping to improve your health at all. It's doing the very opposite. It's destroying your natural system for remaining balanced. And the government is, of course, fooling us big time. And they use legislation for that. There is no real legislation. All legislation is unlawful because there's only one law. And that's what I explained in episode 7. So don't let yourself be fooled by the fake legislation of the governments. And don't let yourself be fooled by the fake financial systems we have. Because money is created out of thin air. Everybody knows that, I hope, by now. And the way our food is produced is also completely corrupted. Yeah, we can, if we have a different system, there can be food for everybody in abundance. And I mean really good food. Not the fake food that we buy in the grocery shops, in the supermarkets. And what about the ecology? Everything is destroyed. Yeah, the way the planet we live on is treated by them or by us actually under their influence is horrible. And the weather changing and the chemtrails and name it, all those things are created by human beings under the control of the Argons or the Anunnaki. We are destroying our own reality. Why? Because they need to eat. We to them are what cattle or crops is to us, and not to me because I don't eat meat. I'm a vegetarian and I try to be as vegan as possible. But we are very clever now in producing milk. We know exactly what to do to create the largest amount of milk out of a cow. That is not good for the cow. Let me be very clear about it. It's not good for the cow at all. But we are very clever in doing it and we do it. And the same way they are very clever in producing as much energy out of us, like they are milking us in order to get out of us what they need. And what they need is negative energy, or I can better say expression of negative emotions. That's how they feed themselves. So they need that in order to stay alive. Without us expressing negative emotions, they will starve to death. And that's why they created these bio farms, but then for human beings. Yeah, we are their cattle. And if you have eyes to see and ears to hear, it can easily be seen. We serve them, but we are not aware of it because we are under the mind control. We think we are doing good. We're getting paid for this, but what we are getting paid with is valueless. It's nothing worth. But we think it's worth, and we can buy things with it. So everybody is fooled by the same trick. At the moment we start to see that we are fooled, then we can leave these shitty jobs and start something we're doing really important, like understanding why we are here, what the meaning is of our life. So they want us to be negative and to express our negative emotions, our frustrations, our sadness, our shame, our fear, our grief, our guilt, our sadness, our depression, despair, all those negative emotions, envy, doubt, jealousy, all those emotions, we express them readily. Why? We see that on the television 24/7. We see people do that all the time, so we think it's normal. But it's not normal. It's the opposite of normal. It's inhumane behavior. But they want us to think it's normal so that they can eat, so that they can have supper. Without us doing this, they will die. So this is the trick to get rid of them. We don't have to use violence. We don't have to do anything at all. Just stop expressing our negative emotions. You can still have them. You can be sad. You can be frustrated. That's all normal. But the moment you start to express them, then it's like you send out your energy. Everybody has the experience that after a verbal fight like this or a big trouble, you feel completely lack of energy. You feel extremely tired. Why? All the energy was drawn out of you. So stop expressing negative emotions. You do two things. You save energy for yourself, so you can use that energy for what you think is good, and you're starving the argons. So I think that's good. The truth will set you free. Everybody knows the saying, but the truth is something that you have to study. You will not get this truth by accident. That's not true. That's not possible. You have to work for it. Only then you are granted to have it. It's not that it's a treasure. It's just that you have to show the universe that you deserve to know this. Otherwise, you will not get to know it. Only those who have shown that they are worthy of knowing the truth, they will get it. So do your work. Do your homework. Start to study. Become a student. Become a student of the Gnosis, or alchemy, or as I call it, holy science. Start to become a real student of the working of the universe. And when you understand the working of the universe, then you set yourself free. Because that is what the truth does. The truth is helping you to set yourself free. Nobody will free you. If you think that somebody one day will come and free you, then you're completely fooled. Nobody will come and free you. Yeah, there is no Messiah. You can become the Messiah. That's the true meaning. But as long as you wait for a Messiah, you will never become a Messiah. So that's why Christianity is fooling everybody. Yeah, I explained everything in full detail in this online ebook, so you can read it through your computer screen. It consists of more than 500 pages, so there's a lot of information there, and you can study it for long, maybe a year or 2 years, I don't know, if you study it deeply. Yeah, don't read it as a novel. It's a textbook. It's a holy science textbook, so it requires a lot of attention. It's not easy reading, so you can only do a few pages a day, but then you have a lot of things to think about. So if you do it like that, then at a certain moment you'll start to see the bigger picture. That's what I guarantee. Thank you very much for watching this special episode of Pateo Television, brought to you via CCN Conscious Consumer Network TV. Namaste, in lak'ech. That's how I normally end the show. I hope you have enjoyed this special episode. If you have any questions, you have seen my email address in the beginning. You can always contact me. And if you want to support my work, which I really would appreciate, then of course you can do donations. But I don't like to ask for donations. I suggest that you buy then the book, or at least one of the books, and then you support my work too. So thank you for watching this episode. And if you want to see more of Pateo Television, every Thursday starting at 8 p.m. Amsterdam time. Namaste.